Robert Jenrick is generally presented by the government as the positive, sympathetic face of the Home Office, despite the fact that he was shown gloating over the deportation of Albanians the other day. He has now been wheeled out to explain Suella Braverman's comments or lack of comments to Joan Salter, the 83-year-old Holocaust victim who told Suella Braverman that her words reminded her of the language used to justify the murder of my family and millions of others. Mr. Jenrick said it was right to listen to Miss Salter's experiences. But he then goes on to say that Suella Braverman made an important point. There is a significant difference between those people who come to the UK through genuine persecution and human rights abuses around the world, which there are many, and those people who come gaming the system for economic reasons. Actually, there are many people who are coming here from countries, and we do not know what they're doing or why they've come here, because the Home Office is on a go slow. The Home Office has not processed their applications, so we simply do not know. Much of what Mr. Jenrick is saying is speculation because of the inadequacy of the ministry that he represents. Now, we can remember Miss Salter's comments very clearly, and how she points out how in 1943 she was forced to flee her birthplace in Belgium and went across war-torn Europe and dangerous seas until she was finally able to come to the UK in 1947. So when she hears words against refugees like swarms and an invasion, she's reminded of the language used to dehumanize and justify the murder of my family and millions of others. Why do you find the need to use that kind of language? Well, as the BBC and various commentators have pointed out, Suella Braverman has not used the word swarms. That was a word used by David Cameron. But it is part of that vocabulary, and Ms. Salter is absolutely right to bring this up. And Suella Braverman did use the word invasion. Suella Braverman doesn't defend herself, and she doesn't and she doesn't acknowledge Ms. Salter's comments. She simply went on to talk about herself. And though she did thank Ms. Salter for her question, she shared a huge amount of concern and sympathy and frustration about the challenge of immigration. Well, that wasn't actually what Ms. Salter had spoken about. Ms. Salter spoke about the language, the abusive language which was used by Home Office officials to talk about people who were coming to this country. That is not the frustration and challenge of immigration. She then went on and on about how her family was, quote, kicked out of Kenya. I won't apologise for my language. For my language that I used to demonstrate the scale of the problem. Mr. Jenrick says, I think in politics we all have to choose our language carefully and think of the historical language that has been used in the past when we frame arguments. I hope that is a rebuke of Suella Braverman. I'm inclined to think that it's not quite as firm a rebuke as Miss Braverman deserves, but if she won't listen to Miss Salter, maybe she will listen to people in her own ministry, and maybe she should. So for the moment, let's see where this one goes. But I think we may well find the tide will turn on this, and Suella Braverman will be forced to at least contextualise her use of the term invasion. It is not only a Holocaust survivor who has now publicly censored Miss Braverman for her language, but also, of course, the Crown Prince of Albania, Prince Leka, the Prime Minister of Albania, other people from other parties, and I'm sure there are members of the Conservative Party, sitting MPs, who are uncomfortable with the language which is being used. The issue about attacking Albania is a modest issue, really, when we are looking at the other issues that not only the Home Office but the rest of the government faces. And this is a distraction from the serious problems that the government has allowed to emerge, or has directly created. Some of these problems come out of Brexit. Some of these problems come out of the lengthy period of time when the government was distracted by who was going to lead it. Liz Truss, Boris Johnson, or Rishi Sunak. Who cares? If you put that time together, we have spent nearly, well over 6 months being introspective and not keeping our eye on the ball. Why are we surprised that our country has fallen to pieces in that period of time? This is not the way to run a government. Suella Braverman, but also Rishi Sunak, should sit up and learn.